Hazel Findlay has spent her life in the mountains. The 30-year-old from Bristol has climbed all over the world, from the sandstone rocks of the Australian outback to the unexplored peaks of Western Mongolia. She is one of Britain's most successful rock climbers, achieving worldwide renown for her brave and daring ascents. A 6-time junior national rock climbing champion in her youth, it was at the age of 16 that Hazel gave up indoor competitive climbing in favour of the great outdoors.
My dad's a climber, so he got me into climbing from a really young age, and he was really passionate about it. If we weren't climbing, we were going on adventures and sort of like scrambling around and going on hikes and camping and things like that. So just like very outdoor lifestyle from a really young age.
It was this passion for nature that led Hazel to achieve some of her greatest ascents.
Growing up, it was always my dream to free climb El Cap. I'd seen videos of Lynn Hill free in the nose, and it's just such an obvious challenge. It's like this one of the coolest looking walls there is, but I kind of like didn't know if I'd ever be good enough. And then I sort of came to a few places in the States to train that style of climbing, and then I kind of realised it was within my capability.
Hazel's ascent of El Capitan in Yosemite Valley, California, made her the first British woman to free climb the route, a feat she has now performed 4 times.
Free climbing El Cap for the first time via Golden Gate is definitely one of like my climbing highlights, I suppose, in my life. I think because El Cap and just the rock formations are just so huge and intimidating, and I think when you come from somewhere like the UK where like our biggest cliffs are like 100 metres most of the time, you see something like El Cap and it doesn't look real. It just looks like a computer hologram or something. Yosemite is just beautiful, like it's just magical, even just the trees and the rivers and the mountains and the rock faces, like everything about it is just like a paradise.
In June 2011, Hazel also became the first female climber to conquer a route graded E9, one of the hardest rock climbing routes of its kind.
When I first tried that route, it felt like too scary, and it was just a really interesting process to kind of piece it together from being something that was a bit hard and a bit scary and maybe not manageable to being something that actually when I did it kind of felt all right. So that was kind of cool to do that.
After spending her 20s on the road, Hazel has now returned to the UK to live in North Wales. She trains at the Indy Climbing Wall in the town with the longest name in Europe, also known as Llanfair PG.
I think I just really wanted a base, and I just got a bit tired of kind of like shuffling bags around the world and not, I got injured in January and I didn't have anywhere to go. I was like, I had my stuff in my van, but it's not that fun living in a van in a climbing destination when you can't climb. And I was just thinking it would be so nice to have a house and a place to call home that I could just go and recuperate. And it's then I really realised that actually I need to do something about this and get a house. So then I started looking in North Wales.
Tom Livingston is another professional climber who belongs to the North Wales climbing community.
North Wales is a really great place to be based as a climber. There's loads of different types, from bouldering to sport climbing, trad climbing above the sea, something that's really unique to, or relatively unique to the UK. And there's loads and loads of psyched people, so you can always go climbing. There's usually good weather, so you can climb as much as you like, really.
Rock climbing is a sport that requires hard physical stamina, but even harder mental strength. After a serious shoulder injury forced Hazel to stop climbing for 6 months, she began to focus her attention on the psychological conditions necessary to become a successful climber. She now runs mental coaching sessions for climbers suffering with the fear of falling.
I've always been interested in the kind of psychological challenge of climbing, and I think from a young age I realised that it was super important for performance and enjoyment climbing, and I just noticed that some person could have this kind of physical level and just not climb very well because their head was holding them back, and then someone who was weak physically in comparison could climb so much better than them because they did have a strong mind. And then at a certain age I realised that actually it's not something you're just given at birth. You know, it's not like, oh, that person's brave, that person's not. It's actually something you can train, and then that's when I started to become interested in psychology.
In her sessions, Hazel helps climbers overcome their fear of falling by forcing them to confront their anxiety in a safe and controlled environment.
When that happens, yeah. You don't need to be particularly smart to realise that climbing is a scary sport, and yet people mostly focus on physical training. They'll keep training their finger strength to the point that they're ridiculously strong, and they fail to notice that actually it's their head that's holding them back. And I think there's a few reasons for that, but the main reason is that it's very easy to train, to do physical training. It's very easy for someone to tell you like, oh, do these weights or hang off this board, but it's not very easy to do mental training, and part of the reason for that is there's not that many experts in the field. You know, a lot of people coming into this sport assume that climbing's dangerous, but it doesn't need to be at all. But even at its safest, people still find it to be psychologically uncomfortable. And I think if you meet that challenge head on and you learn ways of dealing with that discomfort, and you kind of, with experience, learn to be comfortable in the discomfort, those are like really amazing tools that you'll have for your own personal development. And I'm not sure whether there are other sports that do that quite as much as climbing.